Good afternoon to one and all present here. On behalf of the Department of Physics and Chemistry, Sona College of Arts and Science, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the webinar on recent developments in supercapacitors and supercapacities. Now I invite Dr. Sridharan Sir, Department of Physics and Chemistry, to introduce our invited speaker to the audience.
Thank you, Varsha. Good afternoon to one and all present here. I'm delighted to welcome you all on behalf of the Department of Physics and Chemistry to this webinar on supercapacitors and supercapacities. I thank our management and principal for their continued support in organizing events like these. Today, we have a speaker among us who has a rich experience in research as well as teaching. It's a pleasure to introduce to you all our invited speaker of the day, Professor Elumalai from Pondicherry University. Professor Elumalai has done his UG and PG major in chemistry at the University of Madras, and he got into Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, to pursue his PhD. He has worked on materials electrochemistry there and received his doctorate in 2003. Then he joined Kyushu University in Japan as a postdoctoral fellow and worked there for 4 years. He went on to receive the meritorious JSPS fellowship in April 2007 and continued in that position till May 2009. Later, he joined Pondicherry University and he's heading the Department of Green Energy Technology at present. His research interests include batteries, supercapacitors, supercapacities, fuel cells, and sensors. He has published more than 80 research articles in many reputed journals with a high impact factor. He has 6 Indian patents and 2 books to his name as well. He has received funding from various organizations including UGC, DST, SERB, CSIR, and CPRI to the tune of 2.7 crores. 5 scholars have received their PhD under his guidance so far, and 5 more are pursuing their PhD right now. He has received many awards and international recognition for his contribution to science and teaching. He is an active member of many professional bodies, and the list goes on. With this brief introduction, I welcome Professor Elumalai to take over the session. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Professor Sridharan, for your kind words. At the outset, I would like to thank the management of Sona College of Arts and Science. So I am very grateful to Professor Sridharan and his team members for inviting me to talk about on recent developments on supercapacitors and supercapacities that we have made recently in our research laboratories. So without dwelling on other aspects, I will take you to the lecture on the topic that we have heard on supercapacitors, and I will also introduce what is supercapacitor, a new terminology that is being considered by the technologists, scientists throughout the globe. To start with, I am sure all of you have seen this image, which is available in the open literature. So rather globe in the night time. So this image shows that the utilization of electricity throughout the globe. What do we see? We see very bright spot as usual in other aspects. Americans are consuming so much amounts of energy. Then comes Europe. Am I audible? My slide is visible, sir?
Yes, sir, very much.
Thank you. So a tiny nation, Japanese, you can see that a very bright spot. It means so much of energy is being consumed by Japanese. We Indians also not bad. Our spot also, our territory is also relatively bright. So this image shows the utilization of the electricity throughout the globe during the night time. You can ask me how much is the energy that is being consumed. It's about 14 trillion watts of energy. So if I translate this 14 trillion watts of energy into the energy that we may have to get from Niagara Falls, we may have to have at least 3000 Niagara Falls. You can imagine how much is the magnitude of the energy that is being powered throughout the globe with maybe 10% of deficiency here or there. some places or other. All of you will agree with me, this 14 trillion watts of energy, among 80 to 85% of the current demand of energy is made by chemical sources of energy. How? By means of fossil fuels, which consist of carbon, hydrogen-based fuels, mostly carbon-based fuels, such as coal, diesel, gasoline, wood, or any form of carbon for that matter. How? By burning of such fossil fuels. We know that burning of fossil fuels leads to emission of toxic gases in one hand, emission of toxic gases such as NO, NO2, CO, CO2, partially decomposed hydrocarbons. On the other hand, the reserve for such fossil fuels are also getting depleted. There is an estimation by 2050 or so, it's going to be a severe energy crisis because all these non-renewable energy sources, finite energy sources, all these carbon-based energy sources or energy materials are finite. It's going to be lost sometime or other. Unless we are going to find any other resources or reservoirs where we can get carbon-based non-renewable energy sources, it's going to be a severe energy crisis by 2050. And by burning of such fossil fuels, we know that there is an emission of toxic gases, which harm the environment significantly. Last 10-15 years, you would have heard that glaciers are melting, surface of the sea water is getting increased. The land surface temperature is also increasing. Even 2 to 3 degrees increase in the surface temperature or sea level temperature will lead to huge destruction on the environment. We have been witnessing in some parts of the globe, there are no water or there are no rains. In another part of the globe, there are huge floods, rains, the weather patterns are changing, etc. All these are due to change in the environment or the pollution levels. Mainly, 40 to 50% of such pollution is caused by automobile emissions, which uses carbon-based fuels by means of combustion, chemical combustion. There is a new technology coming up to denox or desox or decox. So it means to decompose these toxic gases into environmentally friendly nitrogen using this selective catalytic reduction system, very specifically known as urea-based selective catalytic reduction system. I hope in a decade or so, most of the vehicles, gasoline-based vehicles, diesel-based vehicles, may be equipped with such technologies. Already there are test vehicles. So in the tailpipe, there will be a tank which will be equipped with the urea solution. Hydrolysis of urea will give you ammonia. Then this ammonia will be made to react with the toxic gases which are emitted or which are generated during the combustion of fossil fuels. So upon this reaction at such temperature, the toxic NO, NO2 can be decomposed or converted into green emission, rather zero emissions or green emission or clean emissions. To have an effective technology, we need to have a high performance sensors. There is a different group throughout the globe developing such performance sensors so that the amount of urea to be injected, amount of NO2 or NOx to be generated in the tailpipe of the automobile need to be looped or synchronized with the help of sensors such as these things. I hope in a decade or so, most of the vehicles will be equipped with such technologies. There will be a less emission by such automobiles. So we also need to be remember that by 10 years from now, most of the vehicles on the road is going to be electric vehicles. There will be less percentage of these conventional gasoline-based vehicles. But possible solution would be to use alternative energy sources which don't harm the environment. The possible solution would be to use hydrogen as the fuel. You will agree with me. So burning of hydrogen will give you energy and water. No other CO2, because there are no resources. There are no carbon associated with the hydrogen. But unfortunately, raw hydrogen is not available. But hydrogen in the form of biomass, mainly sustainable, renewable in nature, is available in plenty. So the safe solution is either to adopt the DNOx system so that the emission can be reduced, or to go for alternative energy sources which are sustainable in nature or must be renewable in nature. So as the name implies, sustainable energy or renewable energy, it means that you consume the energy sources, leave something in such a way that it is not depleted completely. Our future generation also will get benefit out of it. We all should remember that the Mother Earth on which we are living, we have borrowed this Mother Earth from our future generations. We should live without much harming to the Mother Earth. So we need to utilize alternative energy sources. When I say alternative energy sources, these are the characteristic or features it must have. Large abundance, renewable in nature, environmentally clean, high energy content, low cost, whatnot. And if you adopt all these features, not many alternative energy sources will serve available. Only countable number of alternative or renewable energy sources are available, and they are, as you are seeing in the screen. We have one solar system, one sun. Using the sun radiation, it is possible to develop two energy technologies. One is solar thermal technology. Another technology, as you know, photovoltaic or day-sensitized solar cells. The other renewable energy sources are biomass, wind energy, hydro energy, geothermal, ocean, tidal, etc. The very characteristic of these alternative energy sources are they are not available throughout the day, and they are not available throughout the land. But our energy demand is 24/7. Whether it is for use for domestic application or industrial applications or transportation applications, we require the energy 24/7. Day, night, weekdays, weekends, etc. But these alternative energy sources are available. For example, sun radiation is available during only daytime. And effective sun radiation is available maybe from 9 a.m. in the morning to 4 a.m. in the afternoon or evening. Solar radiation or solar cells or dye-sensitive solar cells, if at all we want to use, we can use only with this limited time. On the other hand, the wind also is not available throughout the day, throughout the land. It depends on the land pattern. Land patterns such places like Mangalore or places like Thoothukudi, Tirunelveli district or Aralvalmozhi, these places the land pattern is suitable in such a way that with the gradients on the surface temperature, there is a sufficient wind speed and it can generate a sufficient wind speed so that using the wind turbines, it is possible to generate electrical energy. And it is not possible to generate maybe from other places where the wind speed is not sufficient. And you see that these alternative energy sources, energy from these alternative energy sources have to be transported from one place to another places. And it is not possible to completely utilize from the site of its generation. It has to be transported. I am sure you will also agree with me that transportation of the power from one place to another place involves huge infrastructure, mainly grid, an effective grid. And you will also know that transportation through grid is inherently associated with the 40% of the power loss. It is as equal as not generated 40% of the power. So the best option would be to store the energy from these alternative or renewable energy sources using an effective energy storage system or devices in such a way that you can utilize it whenever, wherever you require. In this regard, we require an efficient energy storage device system or devices or systems which are affordable and efficiently they should be able to store the energies. In this regard, we have this option, electrochemical energy systems. We have other option also, mechanical energy storage, thermal energy storage. This lecture will concentrate only on the electrochemical energy storage system. We have three options. As you see, fuel cells, batteries, and supercapacitors are the typical three types of electrochemical energy systems or devices. Fuel cells, batteries, supercapacitors. While fuel cells are energy conversion devices, batteries and supercapacitors are energy storage devices. So it means batteries and supercapacitors, I will later introduce at the end of my lecture, supercapacities. They not only convert the chemical energy into electrical energy and they store it, and they give the option to utilize wherever, whenever we require. What are fuel cells? They are basically galvanic cells or voltaic cells. It consists of four components, one anode, one cathode, an electrolyte, then supply of oxygen and fuel. A single fuel cell will generate theoretically, if hydrogen as a fuel, oxygen as an oxidant, theoretically will generate 1.23 voltage. The chemical energy associated with the hydrogen molecule can be converted using this fuel cell device. As long as you fuel the hydrogen fuel and oxygen at the cathode will generate 1.23 voltage, a single fuel cell. We know that for our domestic application, we require 230 voltage. And maybe depending on the system, you require some power, some whatever, 10 whatever, kilowatt hour, etc. So you will have to combine the fuel cells in series or in parallel such a way that you meet the required energy or power. Whereas the batteries are also galvanic cell, they develop positive potentials. The simplest battery is the Lagrange cell or voltaic cell or galvanic cell, which consists of three components, one anode and a cathode and an electrolyte. Electrolyte serves the purpose of moving the ions, and the anode where oxidation taking place, cathode where reduction take place. In this case, it can generate a plus 1.1 voltage. So if you want to construct a battery, you need to take a redox couple and you need to get a positive potential. Whether they are rechargeable batteries or non-rechargeable batteries, it depends on the chemistry or the feasibility of the electrode reactions. But they are energy storage devices. They convert the chemical energies associated with the chemical molecules, maybe in this case zinc and copper, convert into electrical energy and store it, and you can use it wherever, whenever you want. So the matured battery technology that we have encountered so far is, other than lead acid battery, now the revolution is made in the communication and automobile industries using the most powerful battery, lithium-ion battery, which has got Nobel Prize in last year. Similar to batteries, supercapacitors also an energy storage device. I do not call this supercapacitor as an energy storage device. I will rather call it as a power device, because batteries are regarded, supercapacitors are regarded like a relay runner, like a Usain Bolt. They can generate quickly very high power. You can look up this. So the power densities are the specific power, hundreds of times to 1,000 times it can deliver quickly in a second, in a minute, like a Usain Bolt, who crossed 100 meters in 9.11 seconds. He broke his own records. You all would have witnessed. But batteries are like a marathon runner. They don't deliver high power, but they can deliver the energy very long time. You know that marathon runners, they run 20 kilometers to 50 kilometers, 40 kilometers, etc. They release the energy slowly. Batteries are like that. So the batteries which we use in smartphone or laptop or any other electronic devices, so they are energy devices. But supercapacitors are used wherever high moment of inertia, high resistance are associated. Wherever you require very high power, supercapacitors are used. So supercapacitors are power devices and batteries are energy devices. Very specifically, as the professor introduced, the today's lecture will concentrate on supercapacitors and supercapacities. Where these supercapacitors are used, please bear with me. I have kept enough introductory slide, thinking that many young researchers will benefit on the basics of supercapacitors and supercapacities. And after attending these classes, maybe when you want to pursue your post PG program or any other research program, you may be interested to adopt these technologies or these field for your academics. That is the purpose of this seminar web series. I hope I will be able to fulfill that expectations. Where these supercapacitors are used, let us consider an automobile. Assume that it is powered with the batteries. How the electric vehicle will operate? So it is having a huge mass. You can see that the typical electric vehicle you consider. There is a gravity force which pulls down on the earth, and there is a rolling resistance associated with the wheel between the wheels and the road. And if the roads are not plain, then it will have some slope, and there is a specific gravity, and there is a wind force. We call it as an aerodynamic coefficient, aerodynamic force. So when you start the vehicle, when you apply the acceleration, the power that you apply to the wheels should overcome all these resistive forces. It is possible to quantify what are those resistive forces or repulsive forces. Gravity force, aerodynamic force, then rolling resistance, all these things. Unless the power overcomes the power of all these repulsive forces, the vehicle cannot be moved. And it is estimated that with these factors, these parameters, at least you require 61 kilowatts of power to move the vehicle at a speed of about 96.6 kilometers per hour in just 10 seconds. I told you that this vehicle is equipped with a battery. Battery is not possible to get such a very high power, simply. Very difficult, because I told you that batteries are energy devices. And difficult to get such a very high power, 60,000 watt-hour. In this regard, supercapacitors, supercapacities are able to power such a very high power. You remember in one of the slides I told, supercapacitor can deliver the power densities about the hundreds of thousand times watts, hundreds of thousands of watt power it can generate, and it deliver quickly. And then, so vehicle can move, overcome the rolling resistance and aerodynamic force, etc. And the vehicle can be started and it can move. Once the vehicle moves, so maybe less power is required, then the power can be substituted or supplied by the batteries. This slide shows the comparison of all the electrochemical energy systems, fuel cells to battery, supercapacitors and capacitors. We have a conventional capacitors, their power density is exceedingly high. How many kilowatts? You can see the large. Supercapacitors are in between, batteries are very low, fuel cells have very low power density, power densities. Energy densities are reverse. Before I concentrate on the supercapacitors, let us see some aspects of capacitors. Physicists, they call condensed capacitor as a condenser, and chemists call as a capacitor. So since this lecture is arranged by both the Department of Physics and the chemist, I think I must appreciate the organizers, department, faculty members, head of the department, principals for bridging this chemist and physicist. And I hope this lecture will be useful to them, both of them. So we call this as a parallel plate capacitor or condenser. What are parallel plate capacitor or condensers? You need to have a dielectric. Again, physicists call dielectrics. The rest of the people call as an insulator. Okay. So you need to have a two conducting plate. sandwiched with an dielectric materials. Then the resultant device is symbolized like this, and you call it as a capacitor or condenser. How it charges, how it picks up the charges or energy. This is how. You have a dielectric medium. Okay, so then it is with two parallel plate conductors. You can imagine anything, maybe aluminum or titanium or any other conducting plates for that matter. So when you connect these terminals with your voltage source, so depending on the voltage separation, the charged ions will move and can accommodate in one direction all the negative charges, in another directions all the positive charges. So now you try to remove the voltage source, your charge will be held between these two parallel plates to some extent. This is the basis for charge storage or energy storage in capacitors. There is a strong electrostatic force of attraction. Electric field is established between the negative plate and the positive plates. So when it is supplied with a voltage source, even if you remove the voltage source, suddenly if you try to touch these terminals, you will experience a huge big shock, because the momentarily the charge can be discharged. That is the speciality of these devices. This is device, capacitor or condensers. It is possible to quantify how much is the charge being stored in such devices in the name of capacitance. C is equal to Q by V. C is capacitance, usually measured in farads. And since the magnitude of the typical conventional capacitor is very low, it is often referred in microfarads, picofarads, millifarads, etc. So now I can say it is referred in farads, even kilofarads with the supercapacities. Q is charge and V is the operating voltage. And this capacitance can be manipulated. It's highly dependent on these parameters, these three parameters as you see. Area of the parallel plates and the type of the dielectric or insulating medium and the distance separation between these two plates will govern how much amount of charge it is possible to hold in a capacitor or a condenser. So let's see how this variable capacitor can be constructed. So for example, a parallel plates of this area you have constructed, and it is possible to vary the area. So then effective area is large here and effective area is less here. A variable like a variable rheostat or variable resistors, it is possible to have a variable capacitors. It's highly dependent on the area, the exposed area to store the charges. Or you can also manipulate the separation between the parallel plates. Short distance, charge will be separate. Charge storage, magnitude of the charge storage will be different. Large distance, magnitude of the charge stored in this device will be different. And it is inversely proportional. You see here, capacitance is inversely proportional to this separation, and the capacitance is directly proportional to area. And the capacitance also strongly depends on the dielectric medium. What is the dielectric material you are using? What is the material? Whether it will facilitate for an effective charge separation, whether it is a air or a paraffin, paper or oil, mica, glass, ceramics, oxide, carbide, etc. You see that very recently you would have heard about ceramic capacitors. They have a very large dielectric loss or dielectric constant. Because of that, it is possible to have a very high capacitance capacitors. They are moved from picofarads to microfarads to millifarads, even farads, depending on the area, depending on the dielectric material, and depending on the distance or separation. You have a variable capacitors. Very specifically, where these capacitors or condensers, the modern terminology you can call it as a supercapacitor, or an ultra capacitor can be used. So these are the places it can be used. Wherever you require very high power momentarily, when I say momentarily, within few seconds. So when you on your fan, huge power is required, such power is required. That cannot be simply supplied by the grid. That's why you see like a cylinder capacitor is there. Wherever you have a motor, AC compressor, anything, vehicle starting, train starting, any automobile starting, wherever you have a motor, all associated with the huge resistance, moment of inertia, to overcome, to start, you require huge power. Even vehicles, electric vehicles, huge power is required. So this is like, as I told, supercapacitors are power devices and batteries are energy devices. So we can have two applications. So you can see that so certain applications, you require continuous usage of power. Definitely. Suddenly, sometimes if such power is required, maybe I think I should show here. This is the available power, maybe from the grid or any other sources, but the required momentarily power is very huge. Suddenly, sometimes very high power is demanded, but available power is constant. So this demand can be met by supercapacitors. They can be made by supercapacitors. Otherwise, the system will not function properly. So, but on the other hand, for example, if the required power is a constant, available power is dynamic, momentarily huge power is coming, and then no power or low power. So this is not good for any system for better functioning or smooth functioning. It will damage the system, whether it is a smartphone, laptop, or any other electronic devices. So then this momentary or surge power need to be backed up. It should be captured so that the required power can be supplied. In this regard also, supercapacitors can take up backup as a backup. So far I have discussed about some introduction about capacitors or condensers, which physicists call it. Similar concept can be extended to other than the parallel plate capacitors. Now you take any other two electrodes. Now need not be a dielectric matrix. You replace with a solution, an electrolyte, maybe something like this. A porous material, namely a carbon, you take two electrodes and immerse in an electrolyte, maybe a salt water dipped in your water, or sodium sulfate, or any acid or alkali for that matter. Similar situation we can have here when this is connected to a voltage source. So two carbon electrodes, there we had two parallel plate conductors, maybe titanium, aluminum, etc. or even gold capacitors, conventional. Now supercapacitors, ultra capacitors. So liquid based electrolyte and two electrodes need not be like conducting metals, but conductors like carbon enough. So now it is connected to the voltage source. Similar situation we can have. There is an accumulation of negative charge in one electrode and accumulation of negative positive charges in another electrode. And a similar quantification it is possible to do. Area dependent, here you will talk about surface area. And separation, here you will talk about the area, the distance between the electrodes. And you call this an electrochemical capacitor or electrical capacitors. So there is another way of quantifying the capacitance. I will come back to that later. So this is the schematic view of electrical capacitors, or since the carbon is used and it is a lightweight, and you call it as an ultra capacitors. Only requirement is you need to have a very high surface area, porous material, so that a charge separation can take place effectively, efficiently, and separated by some distance. It should not touch but it cannot be far also, it cannot touch also, with some separations. So this is the classification of the capacitors. The electrolytic capacitor, electrochemical capacitors are two types. Electrical double layer capacitors are also known as a non-Faraday capacitor. So as the name implies, when I say non-Faradaic, there are no reaction taking place. No redox reaction, reduction, oxidation reactions taking place. It is similar to that we have seen in the conventional parallel plate capacitor, charge separation. Negative charges, positive charges are separated between the double layers. The other classification is pseudo capacitors or redox capacitors, are also known as a Faraday capacitor, non-Faradaic Faraday capacitors. So Faradaic reaction is taking place. One oxidation reaction, one reduction reaction is taking place in pseudo capacitors. Not necessarily charge separation, but here charge transfer reaction is taking place. This is I think this slide will give you the better information. Double layer capacitor, simply electrical double layer capacitors or double layer capacitors, there is a charge separation. But in the case of redox capacitor, there is a charge transfer. What is charge transfer? An electron transfer. Electron is a charged species, as we all know. Generally, so the magnitude of the capacitance of this double layer capacitance less compared to the redox capacitors. But power density is very high for double layer capacitor and a little less for redox capacitor or Faraday capacitors. So you can see this is what I told you, double layer capacitor has very low capacitance. This is aerial capacitors, only 10 to 50 microfarads, picofarads. Whereas pseudo capacitors or Faraday capacitors, you can see that there it was microfarads, 10⁻⁻⁶. Here farads, hundreds of thousands of farads per gram. Example, ruthenium oxide or manganese oxide, excuse me. So this is one analogy used to understand the various types of energy storage devices, whether it is a battery, supercapacitor, or ultracapacitor capacitors. Battery can be regarded like a tank, something like this. Huge tank, but the tap is very small. Whereas conventional capacitor, the tap is large, but the tank is very small. So it means the charge storage is very less, but it can give up quickly. Batteries, they can store more charge or more energy, but they will not be able to give more power. Ultra capacitors are in between. So this is one water tank analogy used to understand these three energy storage devices. Then other comparison or distinction between the capacitor and batteries are this, you believe it or not, this is the charging discharging profile of a battery. What do we see? We see a constant supply of voltage or power. A plateau region is seen during charging and discharging. Whereas the charging and discharging profile of a capacitor and ultra capacitor is almost dynamic, linear. It is constant and it is dynamic, linearly varying. And it is highly symmetric. This is the characteristic of a battery. You see that near plateau region, you can see this is for typically lithium ion battery. Okay, during charging and discharging. Okay, so for other batteries, the discharge profile. Whereas for supercapacitor or capacitors, the charging and discharging profiles are highly symmetric. And the other characteristic, this is cyclic voltammetry, chemist student will know. So cyclic voltammetry will give you the information about the redox process taking place, whether any redox process is taking place or not. If we have any peak, so there is a redox species. We have very big peak, so it means there is a redox reaction is taking place. So maybe similar to lead acid battery or Faraday capacitors. Whereas in EDLC, there will not be no peak at all in cyclic voltammetry. But whereas in the Faraday capacitor, there will be a peak. I'm sure you would have heard about graphene oxide, reduced graphene, functionalized graphene, etc. If you try to do the capacitor work for that, you'll be able to see some peaks. It means that In addition to double layer, there is a redox reactions taking place. We call this as a pseudo capacitors. Similar capacitor, but it is different from the normal capacitor, and you call it as a pseudo capacitor or redox capacitors. So this is one fundamental I usually show to the student. So you can see that what are the features of capacitors, supercapacitors, and batteries. I would like to highlight the energy density, power density, and the cycle life. Cycle life of supercapacitors and capacitors are exceedingly high. How much? 1 lakh time, more than 1 lakh time. What does it mean by the cycle life? It is possible to do charging and discharging more than 1 lakh time for capacitors and supercapacitors. Whereas for batteries, it is limited to hundreds of times to 1000 cycles only. Hardly 3000 cycles are possible for lithium-ion battery, even the most powerful lithium-ion batteries. Then the energy density of batteries are very high, as we know, and power density is low. Whereas the energy density of supercapacitors and capacitors are less, and power densities are very high. Kilowatts of power it is possible to obtain from capacitors or condensers to supercapacitors. They will be able to see all other aspects. How will you quantify a supercapacitor? I have kept these basics so that it will be useful for the young researchers. So this equation we have already seen, C is equal to Q by V or dQ by dV. If you translate this, this will be equal to I into dV by dt. This dV by dt is a rate of change of voltage in a cyclic voltammogram. And the simplified version is, so from the charge to charge profile, capacitance is equal to current into time divided by voltage separation and mass of the electrodes. This is the capacitance. Experimentally, it is possible to obtain or verify, quantify the charge capacitance in terms of capacitance. Once you know the capacitance, you know the operating voltage, what is the energy it can store in terms of whatever per gauge, it is possible to estimate using this formula of CV square. And if you know the energy, and it is possible to estimate the power. What is power? The rate of change of energy or the rate of change delivery of energy dE by dt is known as power. Or simply IV, current into voltage divided by mass, is the power density or specific power. And for any power devices, there can be a maximum power that one can get is given by this power formula. P is equal to V square by 4R. We call this as the equivalent circuit resistance or the load resistance. ESR also includes the load resistance. It means if you are using any such power devices, what is the maximum power a capacitor or a battery can deliver, depending on the resistance of the load that is being connected, and what is the internal resistance associated with the battery or supercapacitor is the ESR. We can also classify supercapacitors. So I have told you conventional capacitors, then move to electrical capacitor, electrochemical capacitors. So we termed it as a supercapacitor because the magnitude of the charge stored in the capacitor is exceedingly high. So you attach a prefix super. Capacitor we know, and the capacitance is very high. We have moved from picofarads to microfarads to farads to kilofarads, and we name now supercapacitors. And there can be two types of, even rather three types of supercapacitors. So for time being, we will restrict to two types: symmetric supercapacitors, asymmetric supercapacitors. What are symmetric supercapacitors? So as the name implies, both the electrodes are similar, identical electrodes. It can be a carbon-carbon, or ruthenium oxide, or nickel oxide, cobalt oxide, or a polyaniline, etc. Use a suitable electrolyte. And you term this device as a symmetric supercapacitor. Then the opposite would be asymmetric supercapacitor. What is an asymmetric supercapacitor? Different electrodes. So positive electrode and negative electrodes are different, not similar. One can be a carbon or a polymer, another one can be an oxide or an hydroxide. So the resultant device, you name it as a asymmetric supercapacitors. I have another device called a hybrid capacitor. I will come back to that later. So this slide must be useful to the young researchers, especially PG students or MPhil students, or maybe for research students also. The simple way of making the supercapacitor or assembling the supercapacitor. Assume that you are going to make a supercapacitor based on the carbon. And we know that carbon-based symmetric supercapacitor can also be called as an ultracapacitor because carbon is the light material, not metal, material. So lightweight material, you call it as an ultracapacitors. So you need to get the carbon material, then make as an electrode. How will you make as an electrode? So those who are already doing research on encountered with the electrochemistry, they will know that you take the powder, mix with the solvent. So add some other component like a conductivity enhancer, binder, you get your ink or paste, you apply on a suitable current collector, maybe a carbon paper or felt or nickel foam or any stainless steel, any other substrate, and you are done with the electrode preparations. And if you are coating with any flexible surface, you can call it as a flexible electrodes. If not, maybe depending on the requirement, so it can be a flexible, non-flexible electrode. So then first you will have to test it in the 3 electrode cell. You will come to know if you do the cyclic voltammogram and the charge-discharge profile, you will come to know whether it can be a EDLC, electrical AA capacitor, or a pseudo capacitor or Faraday capacitor. And it's possible to quantify the parameters like a charge either from the cyclic voltammogram or charge-discharge profile using the standard equations. Once you know the capacitance, as we have seen, it is possible to estimate the energy density and power densities. It's as simple as that. And for practical devices, it is possible to fabricate in the form of a commercial devices, and we extensively develop such devices. The second part of my lecture will concentrate on developing such practical devices. You believe it or not, this is a supercapacitor, commercially used supercapacitor, can be prepared so in the form of a coin cell using these components. These are the components. There is a top case, bottom case, spacer, Orion, etc. So when you assemble it, it will be like this. I think I can show you better. Yes. So this is the assembled coin type supercapacitor. So what are the characteristics? So this is typically known as CR2032. What is CR2032? CR means circular, round shape, circular. 20 as it shows is about 2 centimeter width, or diameter is 2 centimeter width. So then the thickness of this cell, this coin type is, button type or coin type is about 3.2, so 3.2. So CR2032 means circular cell, circular type or button type, so having this dimension 20 millimeter and 3.2 millimeter width thickness. So there are other versions of this type of coin cells. It may be a 2016 or 2025 or 1625. Different sizes are there. So such batteries are used. Okay, so batteries are used. They are much smaller than 2032. So depending on the sizes and specific designation is there. So far I have discussed about the basics of capacitor, electrolytic capacitors, and supercapacitors. So now from here on, I will concentrate more on the recent developments. As I promised in the title, I will take you to the recent material that is being developed. I will restrict myself with our research work. So there are many people work throughout the globe. I hope some of those who are interested or doing research, you would have already seen that. So for this presentation, I will restrict myself with our lab work development. So as an electrode material for supercapacitor, whether symmetric or asymmetric, or depending on the symmetric supercapacitor or asymmetric supercapacitor or a hybrid capacitor, you can make use of carbon-based materials, metal oxide-based materials, hydroxides, polymers, and related materials, maybe in the form of a composites. Excuse me, it should have been composite, COM composites. So very recently, since the demand for the energy storage devices are very much, not necessarily use it in using for your smartphone, laptop, your video cameras, etc., or smartwatches, etc. The demand for the energy source are also for electric vehicles, grid storage applications, domestic UPS applications. All these applications demands the energy, and in certain applications you require very high power, definitely, more than the power required. So you need to develop electrode materials. You need to develop electrode materials for these applications. So since the demand for the electrode, the energy devices are very much, so the resources or the electrode materials have to be generated from sustainable sources, so that demand for electrode demand can be, the supply chain can be continued, and it will not be a problem for developing huge number of, whether it is a battery or supercapacitors. So since this lecture is supercapacitor and capacity based, I will restrict with respect to capacitors or supercapacitors. So even for the supercapacitor, there is going to be a huge demand for vehicular applications and power tools wherever high power is, surge power is required. So when the high demand for the supercapacitors, then there is a demand for the supercapacitor electrodes. And it can be a carbon electrode, oxide electrode, metal oxide electrode, or polymer electrodes, etc. And when there is a demand for the electrode materials, then the supply chain should be sustainable in nature. What are sustainable in nature? So it is not stopped their supplies. So the best option is to go for the materials that are renewable or replenishable or sustainable in nature. I am sure you will agree with me, some of the material sources that you see on the screen are sustainable in nature. It means they are not fresh materials, rather they are all used materials. You can call it as a, we should not think, I should not offend. You can call these are all junk materials, for example. This is a huge junk. Waste material, I should not use junk, excuse me. So waste materials. Waste glasses, waste mobile, the used mobile back covers, unspent maybe talc powder. This kind of substance you would have used. From all these sources, it is possible to materials like silicons, whereas other waste materials are sustainable sources. This, you know, very much available in our regions, in southern region. Okay, in Tamil Nadu, so palm tree is very much available throughout land of Tamil Nadu, maybe in elsewhere also. All the components of this palm tree can be used to generate carbon sustainably, which can become the part of the electrode, or which is the electrode for, it can be the electrode for supercapacitor. Then the material, the carbon can also be generated from this. What is this? I am sure you will be able to identify. This is a walnut shell. This is live honeycomb. So after spending the spent honeycomb mass can also be used. So these are all pasture milk. So if the milk is not completely consumed, it is not possible to use after 2 days or 3 days. What people usually do is they dump into the environment. We have made use of all these junks or waste materials to generate electrode materials, very specifically carbon and related materials, and we have developed battery and supercapacitor and supercapacitors. So as the name, as the title implied, so I will restrict myself with the supercapacitors. So the first system that I would like to introduce you is the sustainably derived carbon materials from monk fruit. And the supercapacitor device will have the configuration carbon. I'm sure now you will be able to see that this is a symmetric supercapacitor with an electrolyte. So this is the snapshot of the work that I'm going to present in the next few slides. So in this graphical abstract itself, it is possible to see we have a palm tree. It's very much available in campus. maybe in your campus also, in Tamil Nadu, if you are in Tamil Nadu. So these palm fruits are just lying on the ground and they undergo decay after months or years, and they become eventually become manure. So we have taken these waste palm fruits and we have unskinned them. We have collected the fibers, and these fibers were utilized for generation of carbon. We have carbonized at this temperature, and we have got the carbon electrode. Then using a suitable activation method, we have activated and used it for making the battery or supercapacitors. Similarly, so walnut shell, many other systems we have taken. So how do you characterize these materials? So those who have done X-ray diffraction or Raman spectroscopy, infrared spectroscopy, I'm sure they will be able to appreciate these data. So these are the X-ray diffraction. The appearance of these peaks confirms the carbon materials. Since it is not clearly visible, so we went for Raman spectrum, and this is the Raman's profile obtained for the activated carbon. A very nice Raman shapes are there. So more like a graph in nature. You can see that it is confirmed to be carbon, activated carbon. We have done activated carbon at a different temperature so that we want to optimize the suitable temperature for activation to get the required performance for the supercapacitor devices. So then I extended characterization is these are the morphologies, SEM and TEM morphologies. Like a highly porous carbon matrix, it is possible to obtain using the palm tree, or waste palm fruit as a sustainable source. Then we have used it for supercapacitor or ultra capacitor applications. So as I told, we have activated at 3 different temperatures. So first thing is, so we will have to test it in the 3 electrode system to quantify how much is the capacitance it can deliver. Excuse me. How much is the capacitance it can deliver? So you can see that this is the cyclic voltammogram, and there are no grade peaks. So it means, so the carbon electrode made from this palm fruit is having a electrical double layer features. Excuse me. Then it is substantiated by using a charge-discharge profile. So nearly charging, discharging times are seen at higher current, highly symmetric, exhibiting high Coulombic efficiency. It's possible to get. And then using this charge-discharge profile, we have estimated the capacitance, and depending on the activation temperature, it is possible to tune the capacitance maybe from less than 100 farads to 3 times higher, 300 farads per gram. So this is the 2 electrode data, which is not practically useful. For practical usability, you need to construct a 2 electrode system. So that is what we call as a symmetric capacitor. We have to take 2 electrodes, 2 identical electrodes, carbon electrodes, and we have used sulfuric acid of 1 molar concentration as an electrolyte. So then a 2 electrode device in the form of a typical commercial capacitor we have constructed, we have fabricated in our lab, and then we have tested its performances. This cyclic voltammetry, and the optimized potential window is about 1.2 voltage. And I'm sure you will agree with me, this is an aqueous electrolyte. You cannot go beyond 1.2, 1.5, maximum 2 voltage. If it is a non-aqueous electrolyte, it is possible to go even 3 voltage, beyond 3 voltage. This is the charge discharge profile. What is important is how much is the energy density, how much is the power density. You remember, so initially I told supercapacitors are power devices. You can get the power densities as high as 3000 watt per kg from such a small devices with the energy density of about 20-30 whatever per kg. So the carbon electrode is derived from sustainable means. We have explored several sustainable sources. So I think this one slide will show you the complete work that we have done on the walnut shell. So you can see that after consuming the walnut, so we usually throw to the environment, maybe go to the dustbin. So we picked those spent walnuts and carbonized it, activated. You can get a very fascinating morphology, highly porous, after carbonizing, after activating using KOH. So then similar test has been conducted, 3 electrode data we have constructed, and the optimized temperature for activation is about 600 degrees. 500 degrees, 600 degrees, 700 degrees. The 600 degree operated activated carbon electrode shows the highest performances. So again, here also we have constructed a symmetric capacitor, 2 carbon electrodes made from the spent ball nutshell, and then you can see that the efficiency is 100%, 5,000 times in the lab we have done charging and discharging. And how much is the power density? Now it is 4,000 watt per kg. 4,000 watt per kg. This much power is not possible to get from the batteries. And so if the power density is in between 2,000 to 4,000, so the energy density is about 20, remains same at 20 watt hour per kg. And this is a aqueous electrolyte. Sulfuric acid is the electrolyte. So here non-aqueous electrolyte. So you can call this as an lithium ion capacitor or lithium ion ultra capacitor. So which essentially requires a non-aqueous system. So ethylene carbonate, propylene carbonate, you can see that the working voltage has been increased from 1.2 or 1.22 here 1.2 aqueous electrolyte, and can be increased to 3 voltage or even beyond 3 voltage. So for safety we have restricted up to 3 voltage. And now we have done charging and discharging for 10,000 times. It means charging and discharging is something like you are doing with your mobile phone 10,000 times. And this is the device that we have made inside this kind type. And such a tiny cell, it could deliver the power to this LED for about 35 minutes. For a conventional capacitor, it will not even power 1 minute. So it means we have improved the energy density of a capacitor. Energy density of a lithium capacitor or ultra capacitor. This is our recent work. We have also recently developed sodium ion capacitors. So the carbon electrodes were again obtained from the sustainable source. So this tree is available in the campus, and then the fallen tree leaves or seed pods we have collected, washed, dried, and carbonized, activated, and then now very recently, very recent work, last month work, we have made a very large size near commercial like capacitor, commercial type capacitors, very large type. And this is its performances. How much is the energy density and power density? So this is a non-aqueous system. Energy density as high as 150 whatever. This is, believe it or not, this is half of the energy density of a battery. So it means we have constantly increased the energy density of the supercapacitor. And what is the power density you can get? So at an energy density of 50 watt per kg, you can get as high as 4,000 watt per kg. And it is possible to make it as a functional device. So working device or working device, rather working device, by powering to an LED. Here also we have tested it for 10,000 times charging and discharging, and it could work very effectively, efficiently, with keeping 100% coulombic efficiency. And we have also recently explored this bopin from the spent dry cell to make electrode for the supercapacitor or hybrid supercapacitors. So what we usually do is, after using this dry cells, whether it is Eveready, Fujitsu, or Panasonic, or Duracell, or anything, what we do, so we don't have a culture in India to collect and give it to the recycling shops. We throw it in the environment. So, but we have developed a technology to recycle it into the form of electrode materials. So this spent battery, we have dismantled it, both the bopin, spent bopin, from which we have extracted MnO2, and this carbon rod, we have made use of them to create graphene. Then we have combined both the electrodes. Either you can develop a battery, or if you use carbon alone, you can able to develop a capacitor or supercapacitor. These are the proof for generated material or extracted materials. We have a standard established battery or supercapacitor fabrication technology or techniques. So with these schematic photographs or steps, it is possible to make we have made the supercapacitor, and here is its performances. Okay, so carbon electrode, LiMn2O4, and what is the energy density and power density? Here is. So earlier you have seen the energy density of 20, then 50, 60, 150, now closer to 200 watt-hour per kg. With the energy density, you have seen previously 200, 2000, 3000, 4000, now 10,000. Both the energy density and the power density we could improve. And in the laboratory prototype, we keep maximum 10,000 charging and discharging cycles. As a working device, we have demonstrated to power to a consumer LED, and it could power for more than 15 minutes. I think I'm mostly done with the supercapacitors. So let's see what are supercapacitor. So the name sounds like a supercapacitor. Yes, it is related to supercapacitor. Supercapacitors. What are supercapacitor? Batteries we know, as I told, or as you already know, many of you may know, batteries are energy devices. So the battery electrode is able to supply more energy to the system. Whereas we have already witnessed that the supercapacitor electrode could be able to deliver high power. Our application many times requires high energy as well as high power. Whereas high energy can be delivered by the supercapacitor alone, and high power can be delivered by the supercapacitor alone. High energy by the battery, high power by the supercapacitor. So it means you need to use two independent devices in order to have a demanding energy, demanding power. Recently, what we have done was we have taken one of the battery electrodes. You know, battery has the two electrodes, one anode and one cathode. And we have taken one of the battery electrodes and one of the electrodes of the supercapacitor. So if it is a symmetric supercapacitor, we have taken one carbon electrode like this. And we are combined in a single device, in a single compartment like this. One is a supercapacitor electrode, another is a battery electrode. What we are expecting, battery electrode should be able to deliver high energy. Supercapacitor should be able to deliver high power. So this hybrid system or hybrid energy storage system, which consists of characteristic of battery as well as supercapacitors, and we named it in India. I hope maybe we are the first time in India named it as a supercapacitors in terms of publications. Elsewhere, people used it already. So supercapacitor we could be able to develop in a single device as the characteristic of supercapacitor as well as the battery. So high power and high energy, such device is a supercapacitor. Such device is a supercapacitor. It means, so this supercapacitor device has the feature of battery as well as the supercapacitors. So from here on, maybe 10 minutes I will take to introduce and explore about the recent developments that we have made on the supercapacitor using different materials. This is one of the supercapacitor electrode materials that we have developed in our lab. So this is nickel ferrite at carbon nanocomposites. So this material was generated by a simple solution combustion method by taking the nickel and iron sources and combusting at 300-400 degree, and we could get a such morphologies. And you can see that oxygen, nickel, iron are distributed homogeneously throughout the matrix, and the formation of nickel ferrite at the carbon are verified using the usual characterization techniques like X-ray diffraction, Raman spectroscopy, substantiated by the IR spectroscopy, and EDA, etc. Then, so we have constructed the three electrode system, verified its charge storage features. Then we went for near commercial type supercapacitor. So these are the components one can use for making the supercapacitor similar to that of the battery, and this is the constructed supercapacitors. Okay, so what is important? What is the energy density, power density this supercapacitor can deliver? So energy density is as a S62 whatever, and the power density is 3000, nearly 3500 whatever, and it is possible to uptime 500 times charging and discharging. So compared to this, ours is the highest reported energy density in the literature, and it can be a functional device. It can be used to power the consumer electronics. And we have also recently made cobalt oxide as a supercapacitor electrode by using a salt gel technique, very specifically SDS facilitated salt gel technique. So we have adapted, we got the material and characterized, and it is a homogeneous single phase cobalt oxide, and you can see that the proof of formation of the materials. So then we have constructed both the symmetric device, cobalt oxide using alkali as an electrolyte. So then asymmetric supercapacitor or supercapacitor, RGO, reduced graphene oxide as an electrode, and cobalt oxide as another electrode using aqueous system. And you can see that this supercapacitor could be able to deliver much energy density and power density compared to that of the these symmetric capacitors. So symmetric capacitor, same material, symmetric capacitor is about less than 20 whatever per kg, but a supercapacitor almost double the energy density you can get. So it means that this supercapacitor has the features of battery as well as the supercapacitor, and that we have demonstrated by powering a working device, namely an LED. And to extend this, we have also made this material, bismuth oxide, nanocomposites consisting of carbon quantum dot with the bismuth oxide. And again, this material, this composite was made by using a sustainable source. What is the sustainable source we have explored? So this is the source. So we have not used the pasteurized milks. So the spoiled milk, denatured milk, we have used it. So it means that if the milk is kept aside for 2-3 days, so it will undergo denaturing. So it will not be possible to use it. Okay, so it cannot be used for edible. We'll have to throw it into the environment. That waste or denatured milk we have taken. So what we have done, we have just hydrothermal it. At what temperature? 160 degree for about just 2 hours. And this denatured milk underwent carbonization, resulting in the form of a carbon quantum dots, similar to semiconducting dots that you encounter with the metals, metal sulfides, selenides, etc. So to these carbon quantum dots, we have added some bismuth source. We have explored several metals, manganese, cobalt, nickel, etc. So I am showing here bismuth. So then you get a composite consisting of CQD and Ba2O3. And the formation of Ba2O3 has been verified using this X-ray diffraction, counterbalanced or substantiated by other techniques like IR and temperature TGA studies, etc. So what is important is the formation of composites. You can see that those who are working on the materials, they will be able to appreciate this material consists of bismuth oxide, carbon together, homogeneous composites. Okay, see a nanocomposite. So then the supercapacitor is made by using the usual procedures and tested its performances, whether it is able to pick the charge or not. Yes, you can see that a power density of as high as 8,000 watt per kg and the energy density of as high as 80 watt per kg, it is possible to get it. And we have tested this here for about 2,500 cycles, and it is a nearly stable. 100% Coulomb efficiency is possible to get. And of course, the supercapacitor stabilizes the energy density after 1,000 cycles at about 20 watt per kg. And this is the near commercial type supercapacitor we have made in our lab recently, a coin tail type, near commercial type. These are the cell components and the fabrication process. and finally adapted for the working devices. And what is its energy density and power density? 32 watt hour per kg is the energy density, and power density is as high as 8000 watt hour per kg. So except in this case, our energy density is in par with the other bismuth-based reports. And so this has appeared very recently, before last year in Omega. So in this direction, we have also developed several other supercapacitor materials, and you can see that. So apart from nickel, cobalt, cerium oxide also we have explored, and lithium manganese also explored, and nickel ferrites also explored. Very recently, this is nickel oxide also explored as a supercapacitor applications. And this is one real application. I think I will be able to make it. So there is a working video here. So anyway, it could be able to power the LED device. Yes. So this is the device and a commercial LED. So it is possible to make a working devices. And the material that we have generated in this particular work is from a simple, it can be considered for commercial level applications. And it was recently appeared as a cover image in this journal. So we are very grateful to these editors. And this innovative battery technology or supercapacitor technology is recently highlighted. Some of you would have already seen this media coverage recently from our lab. And to summarize, so we have made several materials, either carbon-based materials, oxide-based materials, cobalt, nickel system. Mainly, we have improved the energy density. So maybe from tens to hundreds. And similarly, we have improved the power densities from hundreds, thousands to few thousands to 10,000s. And we have also explored the cycle life to 10,000 cycles. In all, so we have manipulated the composition, conductivity, redox process in such a way that it resulted in high energy density, high power densities. So I hope these materials and the technologies will be useful for commercial level applications. We have protected many of our works in terms of patent IPRs. I hope maybe in the near future it may go for commercial level applications, and we are working towards that with some ventures. So thank you very much for your attentions. So it is hard to listen to any lectures during the afternoon time. I am thankful to all of you, and especially the organizers for inviting me to share some of the recent works that we have done on the supercapacitor. So before I end my lecture, I would like to thank the funding agencies from different sources, DST, CPRI, SCRB, CSIR, and UGC for their generous support. So with support from these funding agencies, we will have resources, infrastructures to make the supercapacitor as well as supercapacitor batteries. You are most welcome to visit our lab. And the hard work done by our research scholars should be acknowledged. So we have former postdocs and research students, and these are all current research scholars and teacher fellow, Dr. Prabhu. So these are the current PhD students working in my group. So Doraisamy, Atika, Devi, Archana, Sujit, and all these things, all these students. And we have also had some former MTech students who have also significantly contributed to our work, our lab. So I'm very much grateful to them. Thank you very much for your kind attentions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for giving us an opportunity to listen to lecture, which was full of recent developments in supercapacitor and supercapacitors. Now the session is open for queries. Participants can unmute your mic and raise your queries to the chief guest. And you can also post your questions in chat box or in WhatsApp group.
Very good afternoon, Professor.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
Very good afternoon. I am Professor Shankaran. I am really enthralled to hear a lecture. Very rightly said.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
2 to 3:30, first 2 hours is very hard time for anybody to sit and hear. It's true. I remember my college days in St. Xavier's. I was doing my PU, of course. Then followed by the lectures was very impressive, and I'm also happy that I thank Professor Sridhan, a good friend of mine. Just an hour back, he told me. I'm really happy. I have few queries.
Please.
I'm from aeronautical engineering, so I want to have some of the doubts. How best we can utilize the whatever the latest technology applied in our aircraft batteries. As you very rightly said, we have to meet both the requirements.
Yes,
we need more power. Very rightly said. Yes.
Yeah.
And particularly that keeps varying the time of takeoff. Right. When you do maneuvering, I always, when I say aircraft, I mean I have a vast exposure in military aircraft. I'm talking about the fighter aircraft of max of the Mach number is quite high. We do use, as you right, nickel based only we use mostly. And we do shouldering also a little more because you will understand my my intention is we don't go for a normal soldering. We go for a silver soldering because as you know the temperature is very high. Can you please throw some light so that I'm much interested to reach out to a student so that they can make use of the laboratories. Nothing wrong. Everything started from physics only. I learned a lot from people from physics and chemistry. I remember my college days in PUC on those days. So the basic science means I take those days PUC or physics and chemistry lab. Though I'm in engineering, that's a different story. But however, how best I can utilize, my student can utilize the laboratory. Can you throw some light of anything related to my area, please?
Thank you very much, sir, for attending and listening to me in this lecture. So good to know that you have a strong exposure on the MiG aircraft or such a very sensitive aircrafts, which usually demands a very high power and equally energy, and it will undergo a lot of emergency situations, etc. And as you rightly told, it's mostly nickel-based systems that are powered using such systems. So you have asked how reliable these technologies to be used in such applications. So that's the question, as I understood. So when irrespective of the materials, the device, how much is the performance, that is very important. So it means when I say performance, is how much is the energy density, power density you can get. And of course, lifetime also is very important, or we call it as a cycle life. So if these three parameters are in par with or much better than what is available, there is no harm in using such technologies or such materials. That's my point. So as you have witnessed, there are materials, it need not be nickels. Okay, so maybe other than the nickel also, even carbon materials also, their power densities are much better than the parallel plate capacitors, or energy densities are much better than the conventional capacitors. And so these are laboratory prototypes. So with the limited facilities, whatever we have, we could test up to 10,000 cycles. I believe so this number itself is much better than what is done in elsewhere, maybe with our TRL. So that is a technology readiness level. I can say that we are up 3. So it means a TRL 3 or closer to TRL 4. So maybe with better engineering in the fabrication of the devices, fabrication of the electrodes, I mean, not material fabrication, the device fabrication, where one has to control the thickness of the electrode, or maybe you can reduce the substrate flexibility, all those things. I think we can still get a better performances. So if the device is going to give the enough performances or the required performances, and there is no harm in using these technologies, if not for the missile applications or MiG application, for any application for that matter.
Thank you, Professor. On last question,
Yeah, please.
It was surprised to see that the dielectric material
Yeah.
we use just for information. You know everything. Just I want to share and clarify my doubts. Please
Yeah,
don't
please.
mind other way.
Yeah, please.
In case of fuel quantity indicators,
Yeah.
we don't use resistors. We use
Yes.
capacitor.
Yeah.
There we much worry about the dielectric constant of the materials used. But I've
Correct.
seen one dielectric constant of the more than the glass. You have mentioned some 1,000, if I'm not
1,000.
wrong.
Yeah,
What is the material? I just I've seen the dielectric material used for 1,000.
Yeah.
So I hope in that is the case. Our fuel quantity indicators, because the fuel quantity indicators is very, very important.
Yes.
Just like you are driving the vehicle, when it comes to reserve, if not, you can reach the station or what do you call it, fuel station. That's not the case of a fighter when they go for maneuvering. So many my side, but I would like to know what is the material specifically good to reach up to 1,000.
Yeah.
The dielectric material.
Yeah. So as I told in the beginning of the slides, when I introduced a conventional capacitor, parallel plate capacitor, which essentially encompasses a dielectric material. So it can be a simple air or mica or any ceramic. So ceramic, they are made up of oxides, carbides, etc. Ceramics. So they can be a glassy nature also. So generally, compared to the air or this mica, these ceramics have a high dielectric constant.
Fine.
So what this higher dielectric constant means, higher the dielectric constant means higher the polarizability it can have it. What is higher polarizability? So when this capacitor is connected to the voltage source and the voltage is applied to this device as an effective charge separation between the positive electrode and the negative electrode, you can have it. So higher dielectric constant, better or efficient charge separation, and efficient charge separation will facilitate for holding the charges, because higher the charge separation, higher increase the electrostatic force of attraction, we can eventually have a higher energy storage, higher capacitance or higher charge. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Professor. I really, first of all, I should thank Professor Sridhar. Right time just gave me the link, and more than that, the knowledge which I shared with you. I'm immensely pleased, and that message will go to my other engineering or whatever, all the same. All are thriving to fill up our stomach. Only the matters which path we follow. Thank you, Professor Elimelai. Thank you, Professor
for joining, sir. Thank you very much for joining and listening to me. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. You have given a very detailed answer, and I thank Professor Shankaran sir also for attending and asking this important question. So any other questions from the participant side, you can unmute your mic or you can post it in the WhatsApp group also.
If anybody has posted, I will be able to see questions, right? So I'm seeing the chat box. Unfortunately, there are no questions in the chat box.
Sir, in this chat box, only the people with registered MS Teams option will be able to post. That's the reason why I'm asking them to post it in the WhatsApp group.
You can read out. You can read out if they have posted.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah.
And participants can unmute your mics and ask your queries directly to the speaker as well. So we have one generic question, sir.
Yeah, please.
So that's regarding this publication, right? So how do you draw these scientific diagrams? That is the figures that you see. You have showed some figures which are appearing in journal's front page and all. That's a big honor.
Yeah.
So how do we train ourselves to draw those scientific diagrams? Which platform or which software we can use?
So we usually use most of these plots are made by using the Microsoft protocols. So Microcal Origins, the Excel. So they are all part of Microsoft products. And so our campus has the license, fortunately, and we are using it. And I must thank my research scholars. They know much better than me in terms of drawing all these attractive pictures
Right.
or photos.
Okay. Yes.
So that cover page, I must thank Archana, who has extensively worked on arriving such a very beautiful
Yes, sir.
cover page. Yes. So mostly
thank you, sir. And-
it's a Microsoft products, PPT, Word, and a combination of all these things.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So the next question is, as far as the supercapacitor is concerned, which material, particularly nano materials, so
Yeah.
which material is much suitable going forward if you want to work on supercapacitors to improve its capacity or
Okay.
improve its performance, and which materials have the
Yes.
potential to
So I can answer in two ways. So generally, so depending on the type of the supercapacitor you want to develop, as we know that it can be electrical double layer capacitor or pseudo capacitor.
yes.
For electrical double layer capacitor, in principle, in my experience, we can use any material. Only requirement is it should have a very large surface area and stability in the electrolyte in which we are going to use. It can be a carbon and related carbon materials. And you will have to be in touch with the literature, what is done and what is to be done, what is lacking. Then you pick up the research key or research team. Then you can develop in this direction and explore the materials. That is for EDLC. For pseudo capacitor or redox capacitor application, as I told, it is a redox process. There is a redox process. The energy storage or the charge storage, the responsible for the supercapacitor or the redox capacitor is because of the reaction, oxidation reduction reaction. You cannot simply use a conventional carbon electrode. Even if you want to use a carbon electrode, it should have some functional groups which will undergo oxidation reduction. Otherwise, you need to go for any electrode material or redox materials. So when I say redox material, the redox material should undergo oxidation reduction during charging and discharging. So I do not want to restrict with any type of particular materials. So I can generalize metal oxides, very specifically transition metal oxides and post-transition metal oxides, and need not be alkali earth metal oxides. Alkali and alkaline earth metal oxides are not good redox materials, and they are all more of insulating. So they don't have conductivity, they don't have much redox property. Whereas most of the transition metal oxides such as iron, cobalt, nickel, zinc, even zinc, copper, titanium, manganese, all these transition metal oxides and post-transition metal oxides, they are susceptible for oxidation reduction reactions and they can be used. So generally compared to the carbon electrode, these oxides and their respective hydroxides will have a higher capacitance. Higher capacitance means higher energy density we can have, or higher charge storage we can have it. Of course, power density also may be better depending on the electrolyte that you use it. So then you can also combine both these electrodes, oxide, hydroxide, carbon with that of hydroxide polymer and with that of the carbon. So we call it as a composite materials, or if they are in nanosize, you call it a nanosize, if you call it as a nanocomposites. So the advantage of using this nanocomposites is you will get a very high surface area. So that will facilitate maybe double layer capacitance. Okay, similar to that we see in the pure or pristine carbon. And then anyway, metal oxides, hydroxides or polymers are there which will undergo redox reaction, and they can contribute in terms of Faraday capacitance, and you will have both EDLC contribution as well as the redox contribution. You are going to get a very high performance.
Okay, so thank you.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, sir. So we have some other questions also. So Mr. Ram from Chennai has asked, so how do we distinguish a supercapacitor from battery from CV and GCD point of view?
Very good, very good. So there are 2-3 diagnoses one can distinguish whether the material or the device is a battery or supercapacitor. So before you make the battery or supercapacitor, so you will have to do one experiment. So that experiment I have told you, you will have to construct a 3-electrode system and run the cyclic voltammogram. Cyclic voltammetry you might have heard it. So it is a voltage profile, a current versus a voltage profile. What you do is you record the current with varying the potential, and you come back to the original potential that you have started. So go to some potential, maybe 1.2 voltage in the aqueous system, come back to 1.2 voltage with some rate, and you call it as a scan rate, and see what kind of profile you are getting. If you are going to get a very square type without no peaks in the profile, blindfold and say that it is a electrical double layer supercapacitor material, no peaks. If there are peaks, both forward type and backward direction, if you are having some peak, at least one peak in the anode direction and cathode direction, another peak, so then it means that there is a redox reaction is taking place. So what is the redox reaction you can think of? You need to know what the electrode you are dealing with. Whether you are dealing with the carbon material or nickel oxide or oxide material, hydroxide material or polymer materials. If it is a transition metal oxides or even metals, metal oxides or hydroxides, definitely they are susceptible for oxidation reduction reaction. That can be diagnosed using cyclic voltammetry. A characteristic reduction oxidation potential one can see in the cyclic voltammetry. That is the best diagnosis tool to distinguish a battery electrode or a supercapacitor electrode. Then another very important distinction is then you do the charging and discharging. If you are going to get a very perfect charging time and discharging time, symmetric charging and discharging, there are no plateaus, then it is the evidence for supercapacitor electrode. Apart from that, if you are getting a plateau region for long time or long capacity delivered with a constant voltage, so it is a battery electrode. So I have shown, I can share if you have missed that slide, I have one schematic charge discharge profile cyclic voltammetrogram. So battery electrode will show the peak definitely similarly to supercapacitor electrode. But typical ultracapacitor electrode will not show the peak in cyclic voltammetry. Then another diagnosis is, so you will get a plateau region charge discharge profile for the battery electrode or battery, and you will not get such a plateau region for supercapacitor electrode. Yeah, so other than that capacity, you use capacity terminology to quantify the energy associated with the battery. And for the capacitor, you use capacitance. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have one more question from Professor Maruthavandan, sir. He has asked,
yes.
if your activated carbon is doped with some metal nanoparticles, will it show superior property?
Yeah, so definitely. So we call it as a composite electrodes. It may be a metal or metal oxide. If the metal or metal oxide is susceptible for redox reaction, so in addition to the EDLC behavior shown by the carbon matrix, carbon electrode, these metal oxides will show the contribution for the redox capacitor. Definitely it is going to give you a better performance compared to the pristine carbon. So I don't call it as a doped metals. It is difficult to dope the metal in carbon. Maybe it may be a mixture. You call it as a composite. It may be difficult to dope the metals into carbon lattices. So maybe a mixture of nickel oxide in the carbon matrix. We call it as a composite electrode. So definitely it's going to give you a much better performance compared to the carbon pristine electrode.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. And the next question is, how carbon quantum dot is better than activated carbon?
Yeah. So better in the sense, depending on the surface area and the conductivity will result in the performances. Larger the surface area will result in the large charge storage. Better the conductivity, it will facilitate for the delivering of the more power. So activated carbon, if you compare the activated carbon, just activated carbon and quantum dots, so there is a difference in the conductivity between these two. So activated carbon will have a large surface area. It can store large charge. Whereas carbon quantum dots, so definitely less surface area, but higher conductivity. And if you functionalize, you can still expect a higher conductivity compared to the graphite. It may be less than that of the graphene, but when you compare with the activated carbon, carbon quantum dots may have a better conductivity, so you can expect a higher power density. You will have to compromise both charge storage and power density. So higher surface area will facilitate charge storage. Definitely better conductivity will facilitate higher power density. I hope I answered.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks. So I hope that's all the questions that we have here in the chat box. If any other questions are there from the participant side, you can unmute your mic and ask your questions. Okay, sir. I think that's it. Thanks a lot, sir. You have patiently answered and in detail answered all the questions. Thanks a lot, sir. And yeah, thank you, sir. Yes, MC people, you can take it over.
I sincerely thank our invited speaker, Professor P. Elumalai sir, for patiently answering all the questions. Thank you, sir. Now I request my classmate, Edris, to deliver vote of thanks.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. On behalf of the Department of Physics and Chemistry of Sona College of Arts and Science, I would like to thank our chief guest, Professor P. Elumalai sir, for accepting and enlightening us with their knowledge. Today's lecture was full of knowledge and interesting things. It gave us deep insight into the topic and also revealed some interesting facts. The points where Professor P. Elumalai sir told us about selective catalytic reduction, alternative energy source, electrochemical energy, and also about supercapacitor material was really informative. I am pretty sure that the precious knowledge that he gave us will definitely help us in our studies and futures. Once again, I would like to thank Professor P. Elumalai sir for delivering informative things and enlightening us with the knowledge. I would also like to thank our principal, Dr. G. M. Kadanova sir, and our management for giving us permission to organize this lecture. And thank you for the organizer, Dr. Sridharan sir, for organizing this meeting. Also, thank you to all the students and participants present here for paying your attention.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sridharan. See you in some other occasion.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for being here today. Thank you, sir.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Professor Elumalai. Bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.